Hey everybody, it's Patrick. It is Tuesday afternoon, which means that it's time for me to blab about hair again. A couple of people have mentioned that they really like when I get into the science of hair or some more deeper information about the way that hair is and the way that it reacts. One thing that I do always like to say on my videos is that I am not myself an expert, and also the thing that you should know is that everybody's hair is different. It reacts differently, it has different textures, it has different ways of looking at it. I get a lot of questions from people saying, oh, you know, I want to try this product, do you think it'll work for me? And I can't answer that, and I keep saying that, but I figured today I would go into kind of why this is true, and for something that a subject that seems about as limited as you could get, you know, just the hair on your head and how to take care of it, why it's so difficult to nail down exactly what you should be doing yourself. So this is going to get into some stuff that really doesn't affect me all that much, because you'll see in just a minute. As a person of Northern European descent with straight hair that's basically stick straight, it has this little curl to it at the bottom, but I think that's because it hits my shoulders and it just physically curls up. If you know, if my neck was 10 inches longer, it would just come straight down. But when you're talking about hair, you have to talk about all the different things that can happen with your hair. And this, I think, is a great demonstration of exactly what I mean, an example of why everybody's hair is different. So, like I said, I am Irish descent, Patrick. Northern Europeans tend to have fairly straight hair, straight or wavy hair. You know, it's generally of a particular kind of texture. It has a particular color range depending on what country you're from, what area you're from. Hair from all over the human spectrum can have different textures and different curl levels and different thicknesses and thinnesses, and how dense the hair is, how coarse the hair is, how fine the hair is. And when you try to take all that into account, you'll see that it's very difficult to talk about exactly how to give advice to someone unless you're there like your hairdresser would be, or if it's you yourself. So this generally, this subject that I'm going to go into usually is more covered by the communities that are from Afro-Caribbean descent, sometimes of Jewish heritage, because they happen to have hair that has a lot more texture to it, and a lot more curl or a lot more kink or coil to it. But I think it's a great example of why you have to really look at what kind of hair you have. And this is called hair typing. Now, hair typing is a way of describing the hair that comes down off the top of your head in a way that is kind of categorical? I don't know. I'm losing my ability to speak English today. It puts it into categories. And there's two basic types of hair typing, and one uses numbers and letters and the other one uses mostly letters. I don't know if one is better than the other. I've heard that one is more descriptive than the other, that one is more reasonable than the other, but quite honestly, it's not something that I necessarily have to pay too much attention to, except that I find it fascinating. So what this does is it takes your hair type and it breaks it up into categories based on how curly it is, and then how dense the curls are that are coming off of your head. And so I'm going to go over these right now. So the first, if you're talking about me, and a lot of people who have hair like me, you are talking about the number 1 type of hair. 1, or I, this is, the I is in something called the Lois system, which is L-O-I-S, and you'll see in a minute. Or just category 1, means your hair is straight. Stick straight, no wave, no curl, nothing else to do with it. So this is usually people from, like I said, Northern European descent or Asian descent as well, very straight hair as well, especially from countries like Japan or China. So if you start getting into waves, then you're talking about 2 or the S. And as you see, it can form a little S. This doesn't mean that it curls, it just means that it has a bit of a wave. So This down at the bottom of my hair may push me into the 2S category, but probably 2 or S category, but probably not. I have very straight hair. So you've got the wave with no curl. So that's the S part of Lois, or the number 2. 3 would be O, and as you can see, there are little O's forming here. Those are circular curls. So it's going in a curl system, but it's round. So this would be people with, you know, curly hair. If you're thinking about, I don't know, my niece who has very curly red hair. That sometimes happens with Irish people. You get that really curly red hair that comes with freckles and all of that. But you also see this on a lot of people from African descent or Caribbean descent. You know, it's just anybody with curly hair. Now, beyond curly, or another type of curl, is the number 4, which is also known as L. And it's not exactly like this. It's not like you have sharp lines. There's actually a little bit of curl on each end of the hair as it does this, but it forms this sort of L shape. And that's what's known as coiled, or it can be known as kinky hair. It's the type of hair that when you style it in a certain way, comes out with those beautiful afros. That are really that can be really big and really just beautiful. That's generally done with this sort of L or 4 style hair, type of hair. I shouldn't say style. Now, just to further complicate things, you can then further categorize this with A, B, or C. Now, if you have a type 1 hair, you probably are not going to get any of these letters. Sorry, people like me. I've seen some categorizations that give you an A, B, or C, but it's more about the thickness of your hair, which doesn't follow with all of this. So, number 1s, you are 1. You have a straight line hair. That's it. Thank you for playing. The rest of you, you can get along the spectrum. You can have either a very large wave, a very large curl, a very large sort of coil or kink to your hair. That's where it's kind of free-flowing and the air gets through it. It also means that you can get more where it all clumps up together. It can really, you know, snag and snarl, that type of thing. For B, which is right here, which is a slightly tighter wave, or a tighter curl, or a tighter kink or coil. It's getting more springy. This is called B in some systems. And then with C, it would be very tight. So you'd have very, very tight waves. It would be a very, very tight curl, or a very, very tight coil or kink. Now, with each one of these types of things, if you said I have a 1B as opposed to a 4C, you're going to need different types of conditioner, a different type of comb. You know, a very fine-tooth comb that might go through my hair probably won't go through somebody's hair who has a lot of curl, a lot of coil to it. You don't have to wash your hair as often with certain types of curl, and in fact, you should wash your hair with a completely different line of products for a different type of curl or a different type of coil. And to even further complicate it, you have different types of hair at different parts of your head. You can have some type of curl coming out of the back and difference coming on top. I've noticed, as I've been going gray, and I have quite a bit of gray in my hair as I am reaching 47 in a couple of months, the gray hair on top of my head especially is curly. It doesn't have a wave to it, it actually has a curl. I've never had this curl before as an adult with my hair. It's always been perfectly straight. It's never curled up at all, except at the bottom here, which is more of a wave. So what does that mean for me is it all turns white. It's eventually all going to turn white according to the way my family, their hair tends to turn completely white, completely gray. Most of the men in my family, after they hit, well, actually after they hit 30, I'm kind of an anomaly. I have retain my color beyond my 30s, it'll probably be curly, and it also becomes very dry. So what does that mean for me? It probably means an entirely different set of products that I'm going to have to use, an entirely different set of strategies that I'm going to have to employ. So this is not really meant to cover hair typing, hair categorization in any sort of depth at all. There are some wonderful videos if you're interested. In fact, you can fall into a real rabbit hole of watching this because it's fascinating, and there are people who really understand it. So if you are interested in that, you should just do a YouTube or a Google search for hair typing, because there's a tremendous amount of really terrific information out there, even if it doesn't apply to you. But it does underscore the fact that everybody's hair is different, and everybody's hair needs to be treated just the way that their hair needs to be treated. You really can't take advice about your hair from somebody else. You can approximate it, but hair typing doesn't get into the thickness of your hair, the thickness of the strands. It doesn't get into the texture of the strands themselves other than the curl. So is it coarse? Is it fine? My hair is very fine, but it's also very thick. And that's another thing. Does it get into the number of strands coming from the top of your head? I've had guys ask me, how should I style my hair? Because it's getting long. My hair is very, very thick. Some of it's actually getting thinner up top as I get older, so that's another thing for me. But a style that would work for me as I was growing out my hair with very thick hair is not going to be the style that you need as someone with, say, baby fine curly hair. So really, study up if you're interested about taking good care of your hair. Find out what matches with what type of hair you have, or go to your hairdresser. I mean, they went to school for this, they studied for this, and ask them, what type of hair do I have, and what type of maintenance do I need, and what type of style works for me. And it can be a really interesting subject if you really get into it. Anyway, that's as geeky as I'm going to get about hair this afternoon. As always, I really enjoy talking to all of you guys and everybody else who are here in the hair community. Thanks to everybody who watches. If you like this video, please subscribe, like, comment, do whatever you do. I'll talk to you again soon.